Hello and welcome to another episode of Soul Nectar Show that talks about all things essence, where we gather around the campfire like all of our ancestors did, all those thousands of years, gathering around the campfire, sharing stories, sharing mystical moments, sharing understandings, and talking about what do we think the world's all about. And that's what this show is about. And we always have interesting guests. And we always get enlightened at some point in the show or all throughout it, depending on who's on the show and what we're talking about. And I'm your host, Carrie Hummingbird. I love doing this show because I love having these kinds of conversations. There's nothing that lights me up more than talking about the great spirit, God, source, creator, whatever you want to call it, and what we're doing here. Like, why are we here? I love having these kind of conversations, and I love guiding people with an understanding of butterfly medicine, which is the only creature I know of that completely dissolves and destroys itself and then allows itself to be rebirthed and reborn within its little cocoon. It's pretty astounding. So wouldn't it be wonderful if all of us could learn to do the same? So today I'm super excited to have my friend Jacki Smith on the show. Welcome, Jacki.
Thank you very much. I'm really excited to be here too.
Me too. I'm going to tell a little bit about you. So Jacki is, you can see the glow that she has. She's awesome. Plus she's a redhead, which kicks butt. And if you're listening to the iTunes, you'll just have to check it out. Take my word for it, or check out soulnectar.show and watch the interview back in video format. But Jacki Smith is the founder of Coventry Creations, a locally based, internationally known maker of spiritual products, and co-owner of Candle Wick Shoppe in Ferndale, Michigan. In 1992, Jacki was the first on the national market with her Blessed Herbal Candles. This line gave birth to the spiritual candle industry. And over the past 25 plus years, she has created hundreds of magical candles, teaches spiritual development classes, podcasts, volunteers, and is a best-selling author of Coventry Magic. And she's also a co-author of DIY Akashic Wisdom. Access the library of your soul. So Jacki has dedicated her entire life to the mission of normalizing the words witch and magic in everyday life. And really, I'm down for this conversation today. So Jacki, I've got a lot of people that follow Soul Nectar Show, and they tune into the Facebook page, and and I also have a lot of clients that are maybe have experienced some other kinds of messages around spirituality, and what is spirituality and what does it mean and how do I go about it, and is there only one right true path, and am I going to go to hell, and is there a hell, and am I going to be in trouble if I buy spiritual candles, and like
That's heavy. That's a
so
lot
heavy.
of judgment.
Oh my gosh.
Set down the judgment and lighten your load right
Ooh,
now.
everybody take a deep breath.
Yeah. So I just want to let you know I grew up Catholic, and I still have a love for the Christian faith and the Catholic mysticism and all the Christian mysticism. I think it's beautiful, especially when it's used to lighten your soul, whether it's your Jewish or Islam or you're Christian or whatever your path is. For me, and I wish this for everyone else, is the point of diving deep into your faith is to lighten your soul. Enlightenment, right?
And
to get right, and to get a deeper, more profound connection with your divine source. And that's the name of the game, spiritual seekers. So for me, as I was diving into my spirituality, actually when I was a little girl, one of the things I wanted to be when I grew up was a nun, because that was the only option for me to step into the religious spiritual world. I've always had a pull to this. So as I was looking into this and feeling very left behind in the Christian faith, because I was having these amazing experiences and I was tapping into some things and some knowledge that just did not jive with that, I needed to explore. And I call myself more agnostic. I love all the paths, and I want to learn as much as I can in a way that my brain can tolerate it. So one of the awakenings I had is that how dare I be so egotistical to think that my understanding of what is divine is the only one available.
Thank you for saying that, because I've
Um,
often felt that. Like,
so,
it's kind of crazy to think that you know what's right for everybody, or that there's one
right,
path. Like,
right. The divine is unending, right? The divine is huge. It's beyond our capabilities to contemplate. I mean, even the Bible talks about that. All sacred texts talk about how the divine is too big for us to really contemplate. And um, so what this amazing creator does is comes to us in little streams in a way that is relational to the world we live in. So, and if you think about it, if you go to pre-Christian times, there's still lots of divine energy. Um, we didn't just, the divinity didn't show up later. Even the Old Testament and Genesis tells us this, is that so the divine would come down, and if you're living next to the ocean, you're going to have a lot of you're going to feel that divine energy in the waves and in the ocean and in the tsunamis and the hurricanes. So you're going to name the divine within those areas. Well, let's say you live in the mountains, so you're going to experience the divine in the ways of landslides and mountains and volcanoes and things like that. So you're going to name and define the divine in that way.
yeah,
It's relative to your experience.
that's so accurate. Mm-hmm.
So, and a lot of times we just need to simplify.
Yeah, make it
It's
simple.
it's a lot to get, like, okay, I've got these 12 different deities in this pantheon, and this one wants this, and this one wants this. So what happens is that in our need to simplify, we brought them all together into one. Jehovah, Yahweh, God. For many people, that is exactly where they need to be. And I want you to be there. I don't want you to come to my side of the dark side. I just want you to be where you are, and I'm not here to convert you. I just ask for the same respect.
Yeah, I love that. And well, I'm curious, why did you say the dark side? Tell me more about that.
Oh, that's just, it's just a goofy little joke. Come
Oh,
to the
okay.
dark side. We have
I don't
cookies.
really consider,
Um,
I feel like it's diversity. So here's like where I feel like there is nothing outside of the great spirit, source, creator, Yahweh, whatever you want
yeah,
to label.
we're in
Because
agreement.
how
Yeah.
could it possibly be anything outside
Mm-hmm.
and how could anything inside not have been created by great spirit? Like there isn't, so it's so mind-boggling you can't even think about it because
Well,
it's
and
too big.
I love that you said that, because even the darkness, the evil, the harshness, the things that we think are swaying us are also created by the divine to bring us lessons, because we don't actually learn in the light. So plants don't grow in the light, plants grow in the dark. We don't learn our lesson when life is blissful. We don't grow when life is blissful. We coast. I love the blissful coast
Well,
sometimes,
and
and that's
actually
what we all
the
strive for.
coasting can kind of slide us into some trouble.
Right, right. So I actually work a lot with my shadow side. I work a lot with the shadow side of life, not because there's more power in the dark side, but what happens is I look at it like a bright summer day. You get up in the morning and the sun is shining and you can't wait to get out there and experience that sunshine. After a while, you need to find some shade or you're going to burn. Well,
You know how
especially
I look
me
at it is I look
as
at
a
it
red.
like in the shadow are aspects of myself that are afraid and
Mhm.
scared and lonely and a feeling abandoned and
It's a big
one
healing.
and I as a light being, a child of light, I go, oh, I want my friends to also come to the light. Like I want them to know, like, okay, there's a rainbow, check it out. Like I want to go to my friend
Mhm.
and bring the rainbow. I don't want to be like, oh, judging my friend in the dark for being in the dark when they're already down and they feel depressed and they feel sad and they're
Mhm.
in their shadow. Like what is shadow? Like to me, that's shadow. Like when you're afraid to be seen, or you're afraid you're going to be hurt, or all those things happen in shadow. They don't happen in the sunlight.
And there's also some great empowerment in the dark side. There's, I think that's where a lot of our power hides. Number one, is our reserves. And it's also, if you think about what's here is our boundary. So if you look on the left side of the tree of life and the Kabbalah, Bina is that mother god, and she's considered the harsh mother. One of the reasons why is because she has boundaries. I mean, you're a mom, so I don't know how many times my daughter said to me, "I hate you," because I'm giving her boundaries. I'm giving her the container to grow within. Because if we don't have the container, like our body, we are just, mush, like the boneless chickens or something. And so what this does for us, the dark side does for us, is it holds our power, it holds our boundaries. We have the emotional boundaries that we need. We talk a lot about that. But there's a lot of power in pain too. And I'm not talking about self-inflicted pain, but when we experience pain, it's because we're growing. And that's where we hold it. So holding our pain and holding those experiences here in this darker side is just such an amazing tool, because it allows us to deal with it as we can. Sometimes we learn too fast. That lesson is a little too painful. So it holds it for us. So I do a lot of shadow work to release that personal power and that growth. I really think Akashic work is shadow work, because
Yeah,
we're going into the deeper side.
because we're going into the unexplained and the unknown. Because
Mm-hmm.
what is shadow? It's dark, and it's in there, and you go in there, and you can't see. It's
Mm-hmm.
dark, and so it's dark because it's the unknown. It's this
Right.
space we don't know what's in there. It's like the closet you haven't cleaned in centuries, and there's stuff in the closet that needs to be cleaned.
Right.
So, I mean, and you can't be, maybe you would be afraid of what's in the closet, but maybe when you turn a little light in there, you just see a scared child. I mean, that's what I tell people all the time. It's like, don't be afraid of taking this journey, like thinking that you're just, how many people have you known that said, you think I'm nice, but really I'm secretly awful, like
Oh,
so many of us
me.
hold that story. Like, I'm so secretly awful. But that is just a story you made up about yourself and about the
Right.
aspects of yourself that you're hiding back there in your subconscious.
I'm really so I'm going to say two things, hopefully one at a time. That secretly awful is really all of those boundaries that people don't like. I don't necessarily like it when I hit up against somebody's boundary, because now I have to stop my forward momentum and rethink.
Oh wow. Oh wow. Just that.
Yeah.
I had to stop. I love momentum. I don't
Yeah.
know how many people on this broadcast love momentum. I love
Oh,
when I'm in
yeah.
personal momentum, and I don't like it when I have to stop. But you're right,
Uh-huh.
boundaries are the things that make you stop to consider the effect of your momentum in someone else's world,
Yeah.
as they're saying, not in my playground.
Right. We talk about boundaries, and they're usually self-focused. Well, what about other people's boundaries when you reach out to them? And as an employer, a teacher, a mom, a wife, a leader, I piss people off on a regular basis
I love that
because
you're okay with that, because that's been a big struggle of mine. I
it's a
don't
big
like it.
struggle. It's a big struggle of mine too, and I'm finding compassion for myself in that. So that was the next thing I wanted to talk about. When we reach each other's boundaries, when we reach our own boundary, we sometimes our internal boundaries of what's okay and what's not okay, we crush them. We
Yes,
just
we do.
like,
We step right over it.
yeah, I stepped right over my own boundary. Like, I'm actually not okay with what's going on here, but maybe I'm wrong, so I'm going to crush my boundary and step over it. So what I'm practicing, and my word for 2019 is compassion, and it's self-compassion. I have to have compassion for myself first. If I don't, which is, I have compassion for my own boundaries. I have compassion for the role that I've taken on in life, and rather say, and that role might be that I'm really going to make you mad because I'm your employer, or I'm coaching you right now and you're not liking that I'm calling you out on something, or I'm your mom and I'm going to say no, or your wife, and whatever it is. I'm gonna hit upon your boundary, and I'm gonna tell you maybe that's not okay for me, and maybe you need to rethink that boundary, or your behavior is not great. So have compassion for that role and say, I'm gonna be uncomfortable. This is uncomfortable, and so that having compassion for myself for the first time, it allows me to have compassion for other people, saying, I'm really uncomfortable in this situation, and you are too. And I know we're kind of going into maybe some of the emotional and it's not psychic, but mental processes. But to me, that's magic. That's the
It is
beginning of
magic.
magic.
And okay, so I want to bring it back to where you started from this. You started saying, well, I was going to church and I was doing this Catholic thing, and it wasn't really what I felt I needed. And
Hmm.
this is where I want to say that I didn't have any training in any religion, right? My mom grew up Southern Baptist in Midwest Texas, and she went to church, you know, 5 days a week. My grandmother was very zealous, and
It's a
my
lot.
mom did not like it because she saw dichotomy in what was being told, right? She grew up
Mhm.
there in the 60s in Midwest Texas. So you can imagine some of the dichotomies that might have been present right there in
Right,
the community, right?
right,
And my mom had questions about it, and it was like, shh, 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 you know, stop asking your questions. So when she
right.
came to me, she's like, I'm not giving you any programming. You're just going to have to figure it out on your own. So that was really uncomfortable for me growing up because you're supposed to belong to something, like to
Mhm.
validate that you're a good person. Like if you don't belong to it, then you're not a good person. And that's the thing I have problems with the
Especially in,
Christian faith around.
yeah,
I personally experienced that as a kid growing up. I
yeah,
personally experienced people saying things like, well, if you're not one of us, then you're probably evil. Like if you're not
yeah,
doing what we're doing, then you're probably misguided. If you're not doing what we're doing, then you probably are susceptible to all kinds of dark forces. And like
right.
all this projection of stuff onto somebody when it's like, how do you know? Like that's none of your
Mhm.
domain to judge another
Mhm.
person's journey. And what I did end up doing was developing a thick skin around that. Like, well, I'm not, if that's the way people are going to act, I think it's super two-faced.
Mhm.
That was my opinion in high school. My opinion in high school is what these people that go to church are super two-faced because they talk
Right.
about all the things in church and then they come and they judge me and they do all the things to me, but they're super two-faced. Like they talk about, they go to church and then they come back to school and they do all that stuff to me. And
Right.
I'm not doing any of those things to them. Like I'm actually acting from what I consider to be integrity. I don't have any of that
Mhm.
training.
When I was growing up, I challenged the interpretation of the Bible. I'm,
Oops.
fourth and fifth grade, and they're telling me stories about Mary Magdalene. Actually, let me tell you my confirmation story. My confirmation name is Magdalene, and they were quite upset at me because in the Bible she's was a whore, the sacred whore, and they had the bishop come talk to me about my name choice. And I said, well, if you actually read the Bible, and I showed him what I was talking about, I said, she was rich. She had, she was actually pretty well respected in her, she was like the top in her field, shall we say. And she left it all to follow Jesus. So she actually left, and she not only left a place where there was a lack of judgment about her and stepped into a place where she was in complete judgment at all times for the sake of this divine being. So who gave up more, and who is more divine in this? Who is more holy in this? And he just kind of leaned back in his chair and said, well, I guess you get the name Magdalene. Um, but that's the typical way that I continue to challenge what I was taught. And when you're taught how Jesus healed, and you're taught all of these things, turn the other cheek, and then you go out into the world and you see people not do that, and you go, well, wait a minute, but isn't this what it said? And so that was where I wasn't feeling it. I mean, I love the Christ energy, the
Me
real
too.
Christ energy.
The real one. Yeah.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
Christ consciousness.
So I don't know if the Christ consciousness is, and I know I'm going to get, just people are going to be mad at me for saying this. I don't know if the Christ consciousness is actually in every church.
Right. I don't think it is. I think it depends on the leader because here's the thing. What I've learned personally, and this is just my personal learning around teaching, right? Like
Mhm.
being a spiritual teacher or whatever you want to call it. I like calling mentor because then it takes the ego out of it. I'm just a
Okay.
mentor, just a couple steps ahead, like on some things and not everything
Mhm.
because I'm still in it. Believe me, I confess it all the time. Here's the thing. It's like when you agree to facilitate a container on the behalf of yourself and others,
Mhm.
let's just even take being a mother. Like you agree to facilitate the container of the growth of an individual by birthing them into the world.
Mhm.
You are choosing to be a vessel that guides another human being. And when you're
Mhm.
doing that, you are facilitating the creation of actually a container that holds that. It's like a classroom. You can imagine it's a physical classroom, and you're saying, I am holding this classroom open. I'm calling it into being on behalf of this other person or this group of people, and I'm holding the classroom open. I am willing to stand in this spot and be the vessel that creates this classroom and facilitates it.
That's, wow. I love the way you put that. That's a big deal.
It's a big deal. Now, when you created that classroom, your container fills the classroom, creates its structures. So whatever your stuff is that's wonderful is blessed in the classroom, right? And whatever is your shit that you haven't dealt with is also fueling the classroom and who comes to the classroom for learning, okay?
Yep.
So you need to know that if you're a deacon in a church or whatever, any problems in that church, that's you. You're the head. You're creating the classroom, and that's all you. You cannot project that out. That's your responsibility. You're the classroom.
And that's true in business as well.
Yes, it is.
So any big issues that we have here, I realize they absolutely start and end with me as the leader, as the employer,
and as the mother.
As the mother, yeah.
too. That's why you can't skip over the steps.
Yeah.
If you're, this is really the major transformation, Jackie, I think that's happening on the planet at this time, especially with women. That's why so many women coming forth, so many women like going, oh my gosh, I need more than what I've been given. I need a bigger container. I need a container that shows me all of who I am, and all of who you are is not just the light. We like that part because it's all happy and joyful and loving and da 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 da. But like this other shadow piece, that could hold patterns of domestication and conditioning and suffering for women thousands of years back.
Oh, I love healing ancestors. Yeah.
And that's our job here at this time is to also be the vessel that heals that, so that our children going forward don't have to bring that into their future.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you think that those patterns are also in the light? I consider the light is how we interact with other people. We shine our light. We interact with other people. I think they're held there too. I don't think they're only relegated to the shadow side.
Yeah, that's a psychology aspect. I'm really glad you brought this up because it's a tendency, or my tendency is to go and look and see what is creating a block that I can clean it up and I can create more, I can loosen it, make a new decision around it, transform it, and then create more ease and grace and light, right?
Right.
But what you're suggesting is like we can also focus our attention on the light and we can bring, more understanding, compassion there, or see the gifts of our ancestors there too.
Well, okay, so I don't have, so in my thought process, it's not the light is everything good and everything going well in our lives, shall we say, and then the shadow side is everything that needs to be healed. I think there's positives and negatives, or the good and the healing, or however you want to put it, in both sides. It's very much to me like that yin yang symbol. Not everything good is in the light, not everything bad is in the dark.
So it's what we can see versus what we haven't seen yet.
Well, maybe seen and unseen. I like that. The reason why I say that is because I am I've done some research on I only do white magic. I'm a white witch versus a black witch. And that term actually did not come into play until movies.
Interesting.
Until stories. When mass stories and mass movies, dark witches, black witches were usually portrayed by black people. So that's actually goes back to a very racist term that I've learned. Isn't that fascinating? The white magic, black magic, dark magic. And that also came when they started looking at African traditional religions that came in that people were still practicing or partaking in, especially if you look at New Orleans and Marie Laveau and Congo Square. And that voodoo was portrayed in that negative light.
As black magic.
As black magic.
And also to be feared, because so much fear about another culture that was actually victimized in this country.
Right.
And that are angry at being victimized. And so then there's the fear of the backlash from this
Right.
culture, right? So like all of
Right.
that twisted stuff from racism. Wow.
So I like you said, seen and unseen. That feels way more comfortable to me because I want to elevate how I speak about magic. I did a folk magic meetup, which was funny because a lot of people thought it was folk music meetup, but people showed up with few with guitars.
Cool.
Like, oh no, magic, not
Magic.
music.
Yeah. Well,
So
music is magical.
Right. This one woman came in all full of herself. And so her full of herself met the full of myself, right? So my ego rise to the surface, which this is not my most shining moment. So she came in and she had been practicing magic for about a year. And she felt that she knew everything she needed to know to be the master of the room. And I'm sitting there going, I got 30 years in this. What are we talking about here? And she said, well, I only practice white magic. And I said, well, what do you define it? And blah, 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 blah. And I said, okay, all right. So you're saying, well, I'd love to bring a new idea to you. And I told her the story about the origin of black magic, white magic. Yeah, I lost half the people that were coming to my meetup by calling that out. And I'm totally fine with that. It's just because these are the things that are really important to me, is that institutionalized, systemized misogyny and racism is very important for me and that, to me, that's magic. So
that also is magic. You're right. That is. And it's a dark magic in that case of, it's a malevolent magic, I think. So let me use my own words. Yeah, because I just see how caught up in it.
Yeah, isn't it? Wow.
It is. It's a conditioning and a domestication by which we punish certain people for their culture, their skin color, and they embed it in the concept of the culture so that it just becomes a thing that you do. Like, can I share one with you too?
Please.
There's another one.
Give me.
You're probably going to know this one, I think, but when I trained with the Four Winds Society, we learned about cooties. Okay, the truth of cooties.
Oh.
So cooties are protection. In South America, cooties are protection. You get cooties, you get protection. But what's your concept of cooties growing up here?
Oh, don't get your cooties off me. You're gross.
Get your cooties off me.
Yeah.
So like we this tradition got, like, when the colonialists came over and wanted to like wipe out the old tradition, what they do is they twist it all and make it bad. And so they keep it and they make it bad. So they made cooties a bad thing, when in fact cooties was sharing protection. It was a way for people with magic to share protection for people they cared about and loved, so that they would feel safe and they would know that they were okay and they didn't need to be afraid. That was a good thing, not a bad thing.
You want to hear another one?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Let's dispel some of these things.
This is cool. The word mojo now is finally being seen as a positive word. So that comes from the Yoruban word mojuba, which means blessing.
Wow.
So, and then let's talk about the word funk. So when I say the word funk to you, besides psychedelic P-funk, what else do you think of when I say?
I think of nasty as something stinky or nasty.
Right. So the word funk is actually like an aura. So if you wanted to learn from a master, it's their aura, their essence. You would go sit in the funk of your teacher to just absorb the energy that they're giving off.
Wow, and today you would never want to sit in anybody's funk.
I don't, yeah, that's
because it's been used as a word to make it seem like that's like sewage or something.
Right. And then so there's a lot of words, like whether it's from South America or from Africa. You're right. It's they subjugate and then they twist and then they adopt. Like, well, we know Christmas is actually a pagan holiday, and if you read when Jesus was really born, he was actually born during the harvest. So that would be a little more Lammas or Samhain.
October or something. Yeah.
And then between September, October. Even Easter, rising in the east, the whole thing. And whether there's controversy on whether it's from Ostara or not, but there's a couple stories out there. but Easter and the Easter bunny. So they adopt. And they adopt, because one thing, you know what you can't get rid of? You can't get rid of the holidays. Even, I call it National Present Day. I call Christmas National Present Day.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing to share presents. I mean, I always did
No,
it as a agnostic or
but
whatever.
think about, in America, it's embedded in our culture, Christmas, that non-Christians celebrate Christmas.
Yeah. And I'm,
And
you know, and it's
yeah.
the holiday and whatever. And so you know, some people object and they don't. I know people who don't do it because they know that it's some kind of, you know, enforced control thing.
Right.
They just refuse to be psychologically manipulated. But I also see the benefit of having a family gathering and things like, so like Thanksgiving, for example. Thanksgiving is really a celebration of the colonialists destroying all of the Indian Native Americans.
Yep.
So that they could wipe out them off the continent so they could take it over. So that's actually what Thanksgiving is like, yay, thank God we destroyed them all and we got to keep our country or
Right.
whatever, you know. So
Right.
that's not the way to portray it.
Celebration of genocide. Woohoo!
Celebrating genocide. So there's a lot of icky sticky things around that. And how do we move forward? Because let's also go there, because we're going to go there.
Do it.
It's beyond this lifetime, and it's beyond our knowing of our history, because many of us coming in at this time with magical knowings that are awakening within us.
Mm-hmm.
How do we get those magical knowings, Jacki?
Oh, you know, I think I have a good answer for you.
Okay.
Practice.
And where do we get that practice? Do we get it here right now?
By doing the work.
Yeah.
By doing the work. And so what the work is connecting first off to yourself, which is centering, getting in your body and connecting to yourself. And inside yourself is the wisest being you'll ever know, which is your higher power and your higher self. I should say your higher self. And then, so that's the first thing. And then you connect to your environment, which is connecting to the directions and the earth and the sky, the above and the below. So first you connect within, and then you connect around, and then you connect out. And connecting out to maybe through your ancestors or to a higher power. All of those things help you find your place in the world. And find your humility. And from your humility there's a quietness within humility. There's a sacredness within humility, and there's a wisdom there too. I think about, we're similar age, I think, but when I was in my 20s, I knew way more than I actually know now. I realized how little I know when I thought I knew everything then. So
for sure.
As I get older and
God
I find
keeps
more
showing
and
you more stuff.
more humility. So, so it's interesting. When I first started learning magic and the craft and things like that, and they talked about, I had this group of people they were like, my aura is so big, my aura is this, my aura is this, my aura is as big as this city. And then I had this teacher, and she says, well, why would you want to do that? You don't want to feed the universe with your energy. You're not the giant cosmic teat for the world. Bring your energy in, bring your aura in, be a smaller container. So that's when I started learning the power of having smaller energy. And my energy naturally goes, because I'm forward momentum kind of gal. They call me the redheaded freight train around here. So at least my husband does.
resonate with that.
And so for me, finding that humility and coming back down and that quiet and that stillness is where a lot of going into the shadow. So I relax a little more in the shadow. I don't have to be on. I don't have to be bright and shiny. I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to be nice. I can just relax and be myself.
And be what you are.
And just be what I am, which is sometimes grouchy and full of boundaries. And sometimes I just want to be quiet and not talk. So that's when I get to be that quiet one, but get to be a little bit, a small speck in the giant universe rather than the center of the universe. It's relaxing.
Yeah.
And I think when we do that is when we start to gain those magical knowings and those wisdoms. And then because we absorb that energy and then we go out I wonder sometimes if it in meditation or in silence or in humility is when we actually gain all the wisdom, but we don't actually get to hear the wisdom until we step back out into the world, into that light, or into the seen part. And that's when the echoes start to come in of what we learned.
Yeah, I think that so much of what you just said really resonates with me. I think the magic is in the personal journey. Rather, I think it's really empowering, and I don't want to dismiss, the power of the container of having a group experience, right? Like church
Oh,
or something like
yeah.
that. I don't want to dismiss, but what I do want to say is that there is such power in the inner
Mm-hmm.
realms and in the inner quietness whenever you can get there, and in also in recognizing that there are larger structures on this earthly plane that support you in relaxing into your inner space
Mm-hmm.
and feeling safe and supported to do that. So like what you mentioned, I think it's so interesting that before we had a book to tell us how it is supposed to be, indigenous cultures around the whole world knew about the four directions. They
Mm-hmm.
all knew about the south, the west, the north, and the east. They all knew about the earth herself and the water and the fire and the air. And they knew about the sun and the moon and the stars. They knew about the expression of the divine through what their earthly existence was sharing with them, that what the
Mm-hmm.
plants would communicate with them, what the stones would communicate with them. And yes, shamans in Peru still communicate with the stones, and the shamans in the jungle in Peru still communicate with the plants. These are consciousnesses. They're alive, they're present, and God lives through everything that is. And it's only the arrogance of this belief that that there's this one right path, or that you have to do it this way in order to be right. I think that if we can relax into this is a individual journey. It's only ever been an individual journey. You direct interfacing with the creator, with source, with God, with Yahweh, whatever you want to do, great spirit, whatever your name is. You're interfacing directly with that which is bigger than you, and
Mm-hmm.
it's leading you and guiding you home to where you need to go. And sometimes you get lucky and you can do it in community, but a
Right.
lot of times you can't.
Yeah, I like where you went with that. When you feel that the only way is the one way, I think that comes from a place of fear that
Yeah.
maybe you're wrong.
It's fear of being wrong, and it's fear of being punished, and
Mm-hmm.
those kinds of things make me then think about early childhood. Like, who's afraid of being punished? Well, it's a little child who's probably been told these terrible stories that got in their mind about being
Mm-hmm.
punished. And what would the world be like if we weren't given those stories that we were going to be punished? And you know how I know what it looks like? I've
You're,
seen people that don't raise their kids that way.
yeah. My daughter, who's 22 tomorrow, and I watched her grow in her awareness of the world without the weight of the punitive stories of religion. And I tried to talk to her about all kinds of different ways of thinking, more of the being a good person and the spiritual development. And whenever she said, "Well, Mom, how come I don't go to church? Or how come this?" I said, "Do you want to? We'll go. I'll find someone to take you, because I'm not going."
Yeah.
Um, you have plenty of aunts and uncles who would be happy to take you. And then as she went a couple of times, and she's like, "Oh, they've got that wrong." So I watched this amazing mind just blossom. Like one day she said to me, "Mommy, how come when people die, they just go up into the sky?" And I said, "Well, okay, well, tell me about where that came from. Did you hear about that?" She goes, "No, I can see it." And I went, "Oh, okay. That's amazing." And so we talked about that, and we talked about what that is, or just the way she saw things was amazing, because we didn't put that type of limit. I didn't say, "Oh, you're wrong." And so we had some different ways of dealing with this. So she thinks that all things are possible she also thinks that not only are all things are possible, she should probably do all things. So she puts a lot of pressure on herself, but she might get some of that from me. So it's just really cool. I mean, you grew up without that too. And so.
Yeah. And for me, it was kind of like, well, I had other stuff going. It still got me through other ways, right? Because
Yeah.
it's embedded in the
DNA.
conditioning of my mother, got conditioned through that, those belief systems. And even though she did her best to not bring me to those things, it was still embedded in the whole way that she thought about rearing a child, you know, was through punishment and discipline. So I think that for me though, like not having that framework left a blank slate, like, well, what is God? And I had all these questions like, well, what is it? And I got to confess, like when I started on this journey, and the door got opened for me, like, and when it got open, it was magical. Like, that's what I call magic, is like when having a personal experience of the creator, individual, just for you, not for anybody else, just you and the creator. Like you get this awakening or this experience or this mystical moment. That is such a gift. That is what I call magic. And it opens things up in ways that are surprising, like just that you didn't realize you could feel a certain way, or you didn't realize that you could think about something in a certain way, or that you could, I don't know, it's just hard to even put words to it. Oftentimes these things are so hard to describe because they're so big that my brain can't come up with the words.
The unseen,
the unknowable, that those moments are so powerful. And when I started having them, I told the creator, I said, you know, I want this incarnation to be about me fully directly interfacing with you and understanding you. Like I want to be that gatekeeper, or one of them. I want to be the one that knows how to open the door. I want to be the one that like goes direct and like solves the puzzle or whatever, you know.
I love that.
I want to be that one. And so I've gotten my wish. Like I get to do that all the time. Like every client, every group, like drum circles. Holy good sakes, you know, like the things that I'm always having these mystical moments, but because I asked for it, I said, I want to know you more. I want to know you. And so I guess that's what I'm suggesting here is that you start to take this journey. And I understand the fear that people would have in starting the journey when they've been told as a little child, like, this is the one true only way. And if you do anything other than this, then you're going to be going to hell or something bad is going to happen. I understand the fear that people would have, but like, why would you ever want to be afraid of your creator? That's the part that I can't understand, is like, why would anybody ever be afraid of that which created them? I don't get that.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that, a couple of things I hear. Number one is that I'm going to be punished, or I'm afraid of doing these things. I'm afraid of finding my own power, because what if God finds out? And I said, God knows everything, and God puts you in all kinds of different paths. The other thing I hear a lot is, well, if I do magic, if I do a money spell, is my uncle going to die and then I'll inherit his money? I hear that all the time. I'm afraid to do any magic for myself. I'm greedy, because one of the things that in the Christian faith is that the meek shall inherit the earth. Don't ever be greedy. Don't ever do anything for yourself, which actually is if you really read that passage, it's about humility, like that humility I said of like being quiet and letting yourself absorb the divine. The meek shall inherit the earth doesn't mean give all your stuff away all the time. And don't do anything for yourself. It just means just don't be so verbose or maybe braggadocious.
Braggadocious. Yeah.
It's a good word. So
also things are spectrums. Like greed is a spectrum. If you don't have a little bit of greed, then you won't get out and get a job because you have no motivation to go get a job. But if you have too much, you take advantage of people.
So one of my very firmly held beliefs and experiences over and over again is actually the only person that you can do magic for is yourself.
That's true.
You really cannot do magic for other people, just like you can't heal someone just because you think they need to be healed. Even someone that needs healing and goes to a healer says, I would like to be healed, and they're open to it, and they're taking those steps.
But they're actually doing the healing on themselves. They just don't know it yet.
Right. So, and it takes two people to do any spell, any magic, you and the person who facilitates it, because this is a team sport. And the only person you can really do magic on is yourself. Even if you're doing a love spell to bring someone to you, what you're doing is you're shifting your energy to vibe better with the other person.
Yeah, I become them, actually. Like I can shapeshift, so I go and be them. People have felt the breath of the tobacco and smelt it as I like blew it on them. Isn't that cool? Like way over there off the other side of the phone.
Oh. So like, let's take a love spell, and you're going to shift your vibration or your energy to be more attracted to the other person. And that's why they say love spells are dangerous, because you've just decided to change yourself. On one hand, self-love spells to let go of the things that block other people from seeing you are great. But love spells where you're like, okay, I want him to notice me, and I want him to come and call me. So you're shifting your energy to be important to them. And so,
or you're trying to change them in order to get what you want.
Right. But really in the end, you're only changing yourself.
You can only change yourself. That's it.
And so then it becomes discordant, and it doesn't work once they're hooked in. So magic is you do on yourself. So when people reach out to me, and I have a Facebook group called The Witches Union, and if anybody wants to join, come on. Just going to answer 3 quick questions. That means you're not going to be a jerk, and come on in. And so people ask me all the time, I need someone to do a spell for me. And I'm like, I really don't promote that. Maybe there's somebody who can lend you energy. Everyone I know who does spells, there's homework that you have to do. And then what they'll do is they'll lend you energy like a healer. You still have to do your work. So, and the most powerful spell is the one you do in the moment you need it. So I love the moons and doing a different face of the moon and planning stuff and everything, but I know my most powerful spells are the ones I do in the moment I need it.
Yeah, and I want people to realize, like, we're all doing magic all the time.
Huh? Yeah.
You're not doing magic just because you think you're not, and you're got this religion or something like that. We're all doing magic all the time.
Yep.
Our words, our intentions, our desires, our actions, our beliefs. It's a psychic universe. So if you're not aware of it, you're going to do some magic that hurts other people.
So my philosophy is that the word witch is actually a title for someone who does magic. So we're all witches, because we're all witches. And so magic is the same thing as healing. So if you're healing something within you, you're doing magic, you're shifting energy to create a positive outcome for yourself. It might be, I'm going to do some great affirmations. It might be that I'm going to set some intentions today. It might be that I'm going to smile at everybody I meet and see what happens. All of that is magic. One of my most fun moments of magic is when I was at the Denver airport and going to a trade show. And if you know anything about Denver, you come into the airport, and then if you want to rent a car, you get on this bus that's usually packed full of people, and it's going about 20 miles away. It's a long drive from the airport to rent a car. At least, seriously, it's like a 20 to 30 minute drive. And then if you're in a packed bus, you know that there's going to be a long line when you get there. So there's this woman on the bus who was just like perfect. She had this perfect gray curly hair, completely together, and I couldn't believe she got off a plane looking like that. And I look at her and I go, I want to be you when I get older, because I can't believe you look like that getting off a plane. You look amazing. And she goes, oh my God, thank you. And then we talked for about, 60 seconds, and she told me she's on her way to a wedding, so she had to look good. And she was like sitting like this. She was sitting like this. And then after I talked to her, she was sitting like this the whole time. And then she started chatting with the people around her. We get to the car rental place, and the computers are down. So it's hell there. And there's families with babies, and they're crying, and they're sticky, and everyone's miserable, and everyone's like in a bad space, and all the kiosks are down, and folks are calling and yelling at Hertz corporate. And she just started talking to people around her, and she like even held a baby, and she just calmed from the center of her universe of feeling amazing. She started to calm the whole place down. And I nudged my sister, Patty, who was with me. She's my business partner. I go, hey, look at that. Check that out. And then we started talking. We said, wow, this is amazing because I shifted this and I'm seeing this whole thing shift. And then the computers came back on. Ding! And then everyone showed up for the second shift and the first shift stayed and every computer was on. And within 30 minutes, everybody had their rental car and they're out. And then we set up for the show and there were some faux pas, but really we had one of the best shows we ever had, really. That was the best show we've ever had. And it was because all of this crazy, wild, that was magic. So what I did is I just unknowingly set somebody on a path of having a great day. And then that person cascaded all of this good energy and this magic out. And then it started to circle around. And we had an amazing show because I felt great, right? So that's magic.
Yeah, that is magic.
So sometimes we need a lot of help to get there. So magical tools like candles, which I make amazing ones, you should buy them, like candles and stones and herbs and symbols. All of those things are the tools we use to get us in the space that we have a hard time finding.
Yeah, and exactly right. And I like to think of them as allies. So
Yes.
tobacco is an ally of mine, and it helps clear my energy, and it helps me to let go of thinking that's not serving me. It helps me to feel protected and safe. And, you know, in actuality, I've learned that I'm always protected and safe, but tobacco is just one of those that helps to remind my small self, oh, you're fine. There's no problems.
Right.
I think that whatever helps us get into that space of being like a little child, like when you are a little child and you know that all things are possible and your imagination runs wild and you can, you know, create universes in your mind and you can see things in pixie dust and, you know, and you can play and see rainbows and know that they're fairies and all the fun stuff, right? When you're a little child, if we can get back there before we die, I think that is a life well lived. To be able to return back to that magical state of a child's mind. Because that's what our creator actually is so like imaginative. Look at all the diversity.
I do, and I love that because magic is very childlike. That's why we have all these little tools because magic happens in that, like you said, your place of innocence and your child mind. And then there's one more thing you said. What was the last thing you just said?
Diversity. Like I wanted to talk about diversity too, because like, you know, we talk about this one creator, right? And I tried to touch on this before and we got lost. But there's like this creator. That's the one creator and that's fine. They created everything inside. But then there's like the diversity. Look how much our creator loves diversity to create all of us, all the people that ever were as unique beings. There's never a being like any other being. Anytime there's a child born, it's always a unique thumbprint. There is no other child like that child. Look at all the flowers. Look at all the animals. Look at how we keep finding new species. Like, how do we keep finding new species of things? Like, crazy. We're still finding new species. Like, this is a creator that loves diversity, loves uniqueness.
Agreed. And I love how different we all are. I think it's fantastic that that you and I get to have this conversation from two different perspectives, have similar training and come up with different conclusions. I love that. I love these conversations because they enrich me and they make me think of things in new and fun ways. So yeah, you nailed it. The creator loves the diversity. Look at all around us.
And that's why every one of us should just not be afraid to take our own journey to discover the magic that the creator has in store for us uniquely. And if nobody else shares that understanding, it's okay. You didn't do it wrong just because somebody else didn't come to the same conclusion that you came to.
Well, I love that because I teach one of the first things I teach in a class or I'm mentoring a class or opening the space for it is that somebody had to decide. Someone had to be the decider that this thing was used in this way for this magic. Somebody had to decide that green was for prosperity. Somebody else decided that gold is actually for prosperity and green is for growth. And then somebody said, I don't know, I kind of like that magenta color. So the point is that be the decider for yourself. So what vibes for you? What causes that feeling and that memory or that it resonates something for you? I love bergamot. I love the smell and feel and energy of bergamot for prosperity. And someone was wanting to debate me that it's really for calming and it's for all this other stuff. And I go, okay. And I use it for prosperity and it works. And look at, if you go into any book, like Culpepper's book or Scott Cunningham's herbal book or Paul Barrel, you see a little list of everything that herb or oil is good for. Well, okay. You can see the rhythm, you can see the vibe of what's going on. It can be for many things. So why not feel that, grab that piece of frankincense and put it in your hand and say, what is this telling me? And you have to get into that small, still voice and that place of humility where you can say, well, what is that telling me? What is frankincense telling me? And so when you get there and you're holding that and you get I don't know what it's telling me, ask yourself 2 different questions. Say, what would it be if I did know? Sometimes that's the thing you need to break through. And sometimes if you really don't know and you're not getting anything and you feel like you're staring at a blank wall or listening to static, ask for one word, quality, or color. And then you tug on that. Like, for instance, if I was to hold a rock in my hand, just a pebble off the street from or my garden. And I say, well, what does this rock want to tell me? Like you said, talking to stones. And just let the word come to me. And maybe it's a brown rock and I'm sensing green. Well, what is green to me? Because I think the divine uses the language of our imagination to talk to us.
It sure does. The divine uses the language of our imagination to talk to us.
Yeah.
And that's exactly why you've got to get quiet, still, and go inside so that you can see on your tiny little movie screens. you know?
Yeah.
You have little built-in movie screens, so
right.
You can see. You have a visual cortex. So
and then tug on it. Like, okay, so green. Why green? The word why is one of the most magical words you could ever use. Why? Why green? Why do I feel this way? Why don't I like this thing that I just put on? Why am I picking up this stone? Why did I decide to turn left when I should have just kept going straight?
Or I wonder why. I wonder.
So I have a saying, she who asks the questions is in charge of the room. Rules the room. So when you ask questions of what's happening to you, that inquisitiveness is the thing that takes you into a place of magic and a place of power.
It does. And it's a personal place that you don't need to validate with anybody else. It's your personal journey.
Right. So questions always, any question posed creates an uncomfortable space until an answer is given. Have you ever noticed that?
Oh, yeah.
So that's an uncomfortable space. We grow a little. We open our minds a little. Like, And I do love that that question of what would it be if you did know?
I like that too. Because it's the ego that says, I don't know.
Right.
Like the higher self knows. And that's the part you're tapping into, that when you're tapping into the greater than all that is, that bigger presence.
Mm-hmm.
And take the journey. Don't be afraid of it, because that's when the magic happens. The magic happens when you get your unique interaction, information, insight, visualization, message, journey with the creator. Like, go direct, man. Like, you don't got to go through anybody else. You can just dial direct to the creator,
Exactly. The rest of it is that layers of going through things is, a priest or someone who has studied theology or somebody who's spent months in meditation probably has a deeper, more profound, faster connection than I do. It doesn't mean that I don't have a connection. They just worked harder at theirs and they get their information faster.
And that's where the daily practice comes in. We were talking about earlier, because we're wrapping up this conversation, folks, because we're trying to pull all the pieces together of all the things that we talked about, so you understand like why we talked about all those things. So like, really, it's like, don't be afraid to take the journey. Go
Right.
direct,
It's okay.
go inside and practice it every day. How do you get really good at something? You
Practice,
practice it.
practice,
You
practice.
practice. And you don't be afraid. Fear is the small self. Fear is, you know, on the other side of the fear is more love. Fear comes from the place of not knowing, right? It comes from the unseen. And so how do you make something not fearful anymore? You see it. You be willing to see it.
Right. I challenge anyone who is terrified of this magic thing, of this witch thing. First of all, let go of the societal definition of that, or even the Hollywood definition of that, and step into your connection with the divine, with God, by every name. Get quiet, get humble, find your place in the universe, your place in all of God's creations, and listen to what God has to say to you about it. And I'm going to let you in on a secret. God, by every name, talks in positive love, does not talk in fear. If you're getting fearful information, that's not God.
Yeah, that's something else that's within your unseen space that needs
Mm,
some attention from you. And
right.
I wouldn't even say be afraid of it and cast it out and blah, blah, blah. I used to be that way. But now
Mhm.
I'm kind of like, no, that's probably a scared child. That's probably
Right.
a distant echo of a scared child or an ancestor or some other false scared thing or some karmic thing or some past life or who knows what it is. It's something in
Exactly.
that unseen space that just needs your light and your attention.
Right. And if you are someone who has come to this space from a very Christian background, say the Lord's Prayer. Saying the Lord's Prayer 3 times is a very powerful thing. It shifts the energy of the room. Any prayer. Um,
Opening
if I,
sacred space, which I love,
yeah.
inviting the
Um,
directions to surround you in love and light,
yep.
inviting the angels, inviting Jesus,
Right. And then and as you feel that energy around you shift and relax and come into a peaceful place, ask the questions again. You're going to find that there's a lot more acceptance
yeah, when
of
you're in a
what,
peaceful place, when you're
yeah.
feeling peaceful and the message is loving,
Hmm.
that's the right one. That's
Yeah.
the one that you want to listen to. The one that's all fearful is showing you something that requires more compassion and love within yourself.
Right.
It's not outside of you, it's in.
Yeah. And the divine has given us everything. And so if we use it for a positive outcome, for a healing outcome, for an outcome that's for the betterment of ourselves and the people around you, um, then it's something that the creator has gifted us with.
And I want to just say this is the last thread that didn't get touched on, and I know we're probably over time, but because you and I have so much to talk about, we're probably going to talk about this all again. But is don't I really want to encourage people. I'm going to speak in the positive. Honor your ancestors. Honor your ancestors. Your ancestors got you here.
Hmm.
If you have an ancestor helping you in this life journey, welcome that. Thank you, ancestor. You have a gift for me. You love me. You care about me. I'm your distant relative, and you want to help me be successful. Like that's nothing bad. That's like
Right.
an ancestor who is responsible for you even being alive.
Sometimes we have to reach back to ancestors we did not know, um, especially if there's a lot of pain between you and your parents, grandparents, whatever. There's a lot of pain there. Reach back a little bit farther, because the more time space continuum there is between you and that ancestor, they've had more time to heal, and they have lots of good things to bring you.
Yeah, and you can tap into those gifts. They're in your DNA anyway. So,
Mm-hmm.
it's a beautiful thing to honor your ancestors. Okay, I wanted to
Exactly.
throw that in because of some other reason some fear I heard from somebody about your ancestors helping you on your journey. It's
Yeah,
shouldn't
I
be
do
afraid
know.
of that.
Yeah, some folks they have a terrible experience with the ones closest to them.
And that's fine.
Hmm.
I
Just
understand
reach
that.
back further.
Further, go back further. There's somebody there for you. I promise.
Yeah.
Okay, so great. So how do people get a hold of these scrumptious candles of yours as a tool for their magic making?
Well, come on over to coventrycreations.com, and we have lots of candles to look at, lots of information. You can also find us on Facebook. I think it's Coventry Creations products. So just type in Coventry Creations. If you see a candle, it's us. We have Instagram and Pinterest. We have the Witches Union spellcaster group. It's all fun. It's all a lot about fun and empowerment. Any social media, you're going to find us, and you'll find ways to contact us. And give us a call if there's phone numbers on there if you need a little guidance on picking your product. We also have, and we have a new website coming soon. You know, we're at the tail end, the big change, so we got to make sure it all works. But some fun stuff is coming.
And you also teach classes in magic, right?
I do. Coming up in February in the Detroit area, it's going to be in Dearborn, Michigan, is Convocation, which is an alternative spirituality convention. In September, I usually do out in California. I do Earth Warriors. Otherworld Explorers. Sometime in September, I usually do either Earth Warriors or Pagan Fair. So I have a couple of different things. So if you look at the Coventry page, sign up for our newsletters. I send out my locations. I just got them confused. It's only January. I have a long way to go this year.
I know. And so, you know, this is evergreen too. So if you're watching this back at whatever time in the future, then you also you just get on the newsletter and you'll get access to all of the classes too.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, I always give people kisses, which is another form of spreading joy and magic. So if you want to help me give kisses, here comes the kisses. We're just, you know, my intention is always to send out love, light, and joy to your day. So here come the kisses. Mwah. Ew, I felt yours. So have a wonderful day, everybody. We'll see you next time on Soul Nectar Show. Thanks for joining us. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.